Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last session of the day. I hope you're not completely worn out. We first give the floor to Peter Green from the FTA Secretariat, and we'll move on from there.
Thanks, Vegard. Yes, I'm Peter Green. I head up the Secretariat for the Forum on Tax Administration in the OECD. So in this session, we're planning to go through the rather wide set of FTA capacity building initiatives that we've developed over the last couple of years. Our overall message is really that we hope that many on this call do and can make use of these initiatives, but also we'd really like people to help us out in developing them further and enriching them and adding to them over time. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Vegard and Ollie, who lead on our efforts in this area within the Secretariat. Thanks, Vegard.
Thanks, Peter. I'm going to start sharing my screen and then we'll get going. So my name is Vegard Holmedal, and I work in the Center for Tax Policy and Administration in the OECD. Excuse me. In this session, in addition to my colleague, Oliver Petzold, we'll also hear from Esteban Carranco Cordoba from the Internal Revenue Service of Ecuador, from Bernardita Moraga from the SIA Chile, and Dr. Esther Koisin from the Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia. A quick introduction about the Forum on Tax Administration, since, as you saw from the first page, this is kind of our presentation. FTA brings together tax administrations from over 50 advanced and emerging economies, and we actually cover around 90% of the global GDP. The vision of the FTA is to help commissioners identify, discuss and influence relevant global trends, and to develop new ideas so that we can increase the fairness, efficiency and effectiveness of tax administration and reduce burdens and improve tax compliance and tax security. You see some key figures on the page here from Tax Administration 2022, which is one of our key publications. And then I'd like to start by defining the topics that frame the journey of digitalization and digital transformation. We understand digitalization of a tax administration in its basic form to be converting data into digital formats and converting manual processes into processes that are supported by or performed by computers. It can also mean moving from basic to more advanced and efficient forms of digitalization. That means a strategy for digitalization doesn't necessarily start from an analog stage. We understand digital transformation to be moving taxation processes into those systems that taxpayers use already to run their businesses, execute transactions, and communicate electronically. This is described in the FTA discussion paper Tax Administration 3.0, or TA 3.0 is what we're going to be calling it in this session. A popular way of describing this concept is compliance by design. And we expect that by building compliance into taxpayer systems and moving taxation closer to taxable events, administrations can increase compliance and reduce taxpayer burdens. And we consider digitalization as part of, and sometimes even a stepping stone to, digital transformation. And with that, let's delve into the first of the digital transformation topics. Excuse me. For a journey towards digitalization or digital transformation, it will often be necessary to start with an assessment of the current situation. And we propose that this can be done using the FTA's digital transformation maturity model. the assessment results can give you a good overview and understanding of the current status, and it may also inform the digital strategy, helping the administration focus on areas to improve and suggesting next steps in the process. The model is based on the same building block framework as the Tax Administration 3.0 vision. And since the established level in this model describes a digitalized administration, whereas the aspirational level, the top level, describes a digitally transformed administration, the model is likely to be useful for most administrations, including those that have a way to go towards full digitalization. And it's possible that indicative attributes may inspire leapfrogging where opportunities arise. The model is available in 3 languages. And if your administration has not yet completed a self-assessment based on the model, then we strongly encourage you to do so. And if possible, also share the results with the FDA Secretariat. The results are published in an anonymous form, as you will see on the next page. This looks very complicated. Apologies for that. But this heat map actually shows self-assessment results from 55 administrations on 13 different indicative attributes. That's why it's a bit complex. It's good to, kind of zoom out and take the big look at the big picture as well as specific areas, because I think there are some really interesting stories. You notice how we move from dark blue for the lowest, the emerging level in the model, via progressing and established as orange, leading, and then aspirational as dark brown. And if we first start by looking across, we can see how for the indicative attributes, sometimes all 5 colors are in use across the respondents, showing that there are areas of great disparity in maturity, self-assessed maturity. We can also see, looking down individual columns, that very few administrations have consistently assessed themselves to be on a single maturity level, and some actually cover 3 levels. And there are some indicators on the established level in most administrations, as in, you can see there's orange almost all over the map. But there's also plenty of emerging and progressing dark and light blue across the map. Even for those with a very high average self-assessed level, there are areas where they consider themselves to be progressing. So it seems from this map that although digitalization is progressing well in tax administrations globally, many administrations find that they have some way to go to reach a consistently digitalized level, the one being orange. And finally, and quite importantly, the relatively low number of dark brown squares seems to confirm that pervasive digital transformation of tax administrations is still something of the future. I also have included the heat map specifically for the developing country administrations that have contributed to this, to underline that the trends are actually quite similar to the comprehensive map. There's great disparity both across attributes and within each administration, and many have assessed themselves to be on the established level, that's the digitalized level. Now, for recent and upcoming development, there's a lot happening with regard to the digital transformation maturity model. First, we are in the process of producing an e-learning module on how to use the model for self-assessment, and we expect this to be ready in a few months. Secondly, we also have drafted a workshop concept that we are currently discussing with several regional tax organizations. In fact, the latest news on this is that the date for the first of these sessions has been set, because I talked with Siad last night and we agreed to use 14th of June. if you're interested in that, you can contact us afterwards. The purpose of these workshops would be similar to that of the e-learning module, but in a live virtual setting. And if you think that this might be relevant for your administration, we encourage you to contact your regional tax organization and ask them to co-organize a workshop with the FDA Secretariat. We'd be very happy to get that kind of feedback through our good collaboration with tax organizations. And finally, knowing that some administrations may need assistance with facilitating self-assessment or using the results, for instance, in digital strategy context, we are working on an expert facilitator concept. And this will be, we'll work on this within the FDA quite soon. And now I'd like to stop sharing and give the floor to Esteban Caranco Cordova from Ecuador, who will share some of their experience from using the DTMM. Esteban, I can see you, that's very nice. Can we verify that your mic is working as well?
Hello, Bogart. Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation and we can hear you. Excellent. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening with everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Now I'm going to share with you our experience in the Internal Revenue Service of Ecuador with the application of the DTMM. We did it the last year on December 2022, and it's very interesting to share these experiences with you. And it's a short summary because it has been a long process, but I think it will be very useful for you. First of all, I'm gonna talk about the preparation of our organization for the self-assessment and to diagnose the current digital transformation level in the IRS. Second, I'm gonna talk about the inclusion. Yeah.
Sorry, Esteban, to interrupt you, but would it be possible to take away that thing on the side so you can see we can see your in full screen?
And full screen. Is it better?
That's better. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. Second, I'm gonna talk about the inclusion of the DTMM into the institutional assessment. It's very important to adapt this model to the procedures in the organization. At the end, I'm going to talk about the notification of digital transformation gaps for 2023 operational planning and the projects portfolio, because we are arrange some projects in order to fill the gaps. Well, for the preparation in the self-assessment process, the first thing we did is the identification of units involved. Here we have the strategic planning process, the value chain, and the technology management. It's a teamwork involved principally the senior management. They were responsible to raise awareness within the organization. A second actor is the strategic planning and management department. We worked together with the tax control department and the collection and citizens assistance department, as well as the technology department, because it's orientation to drive a holistic strategy transformation, digital transformation strategy involves these units, and we had to face some principal challenges. First, we overcame the confusion between the concepts digitalization and digital transformation. Some recommendations and experiences that we can share with you are the following: the socialization to senior management and communication campaign for the staff. And then with human resources department, the staff training on digital transformation topics are two suggestions for this first challenge. The lack of knowledge about the responsibilities of each department to boost a digital transformation strategy is another challenge. In order to overcome it, we notify each department of the digital transformation gaps or the good practices we have identified, so they can manage them according to the 2023 annual operation planning and the institutional projects we are arranging here. A key topic to address is monitoring of the implementation of the digital transformation strategy. Here we are planning a semi-annual evaluation of progress in each responsible unit. For the process of self-assessment of digital transformation level, we executed some activities. For example, first, we arranged review meetings with experts from enabling processes and the value chain. Then we have the evidence compilation, analysis of the degree of compliance for each component of the maturity model, the assessment and identification of gaps in a consensus meeting, and finally, the communication of the results to senior management with units involved. The IRS had a maturity level of progressing. It's the result. Then we did the inclusion into the institutional assessment scheme. On the slide, we can see the assessment scheme here. First, we have the component of assessment of the processes maturity. Here we compare with some international standards. First, the EFQM gaps, then the TOGAP gaps. It's a architecture framework that we used. And finally, the IT strategy. We have identified systems with our strategic vision within the organization. On the other hand, we have the innovation assessment and the digital transformation strategy. That's where we used the DTMM and the gaps we have identified. We have used the TADAT diagnosis tool. That's an IMF tool for tax administration with another international standards, especially for value chain. Finally, we make the processes and services assessment in order to perform incremental innovation. On this slide, we can see the summary of the digital transformation level within our organization. Those responsible for the 63 processes with these results have to formulate their 2023 operational planning and the new projects, considering the strategic gaps of all the assessments we did. Here we align each responsibility of the departments with the components of the model. And here we can see our results. That's all. I'm very pleased to introduce Oliver for the next part of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Esteban. And now we're going to give the floor to Oliver. If you can stop sharing, then we will start sharing again.
Yes, thank you very much, Esteban. Very interesting presentation. And so we're moving on now to the next topic, which is the inventory of tax technology initiatives, or ITI, as we are calling it. Vegard is just moving to the right slide. So the inventory was publicly launched last year, and you can find it on our website, and we will go there in a few seconds. Just to give you maybe some background what this is about, many of you know that there's a lot of internationally comparative data on tax administration, for example, data collected through the ISORA survey. However, such data often does not examine in very much detail the digitalization and digital transformation initiatives undertaken by tax administrations. And so in order to try and fill this information gap, we've developed this new inventory in partnership with our colleagues from the ADB, ATAF, CARTA, CIAT, CREDAF, the IMF, IOTA, and SIGATA. We hope that through this more global initiative, we get more countries into this inventory. And you will see in a few minutes when we look at it that we've already have quite a good representation. We're currently having about 80 tax administrations across the world that have completed the underlying survey. And what's the primary purpose of ITI? It's to assist tax administrations in their considerations of possible domestic reforms, as well as to help them identifying where future collaboration between tax administrations might be of most value. And so the inventory seeks to achieve this by looking at leading technology tools and digitalization solutions implemented by tax administrations, and also looking at approaches that will help to advance the overall digital transformation of administrations. And so we are now moving to the website to give you an idea of how it looks. And while Vegard is doing this, I will probably use the chance to put the link. I can see Peter has already posted it, so you have the link to it already in the chat. So what you can see here now is the FDA website, and the inventory is under the tab Tax Tech for tax technology. It starts with a quick description of what the inventory is all about, how to use it, and if you as a tax administration would like to participate, it also gives you the option of accessing the underlying survey, which is available in English, French, Russian, as well as Spanish. And once completed, you could then send that to us. And Vegard is just pointing out our email. If you have any questions also, please just reach out to us using that email that you can see on your screen. So I've already mentioned we had about 80 administrations that completed the global survey. So that is quite a good, I think, progress. But however, we would like over time to work with our other partners to further increase this global participation and maybe at one point even get to above 100 participants. you can see here on screen the global map. So if you don't see that your country has already participated, just consider it. Now, how do you access the information? You can access the information on the inventory by using we've created 8 websites. 5 websites follow the building blocks of digitalization for tax administrations, which we have described in the OECD report Tax Administrations 3.0. And then also we've put together websites by tax type: personal income tax, corporate income tax, and value-added tax. Now, just to give you an idea how to access the data, maybe we can open the data management building block. And that brings you now to a new web page. And here, all the web pages have a similar layout. It first starts with a description of what this building block is all about. It gives then some information about other data that has already been collected, as I mentioned, for example, through the ISORA survey. And then it has a few indicators that we have put together for people to use. You can see those indicators represented in form again of a map. And Vegard, maybe you just can move to, for example, tax administration's use of analytics for real-time and tax fraud detection and prevention. And so you then see very quickly how many countries have those type of tools or use those type of tools and those that haven't. So quite neat. If you want to make a presentation internally, you can use those pre-built indicators, take a screenshot and implement into your presentation. However, what is of course much more interesting for the data analysts is accessing the raw data, and that you will find below those maps. And we have put together data tables containing all the information for the different building blocks that we've asked in the survey. And here you can see those tables. They're in Excel format. You can just basically click on them. It will download the Excel file, which you can then afterwards just open on your desktop. I don't know, Vegard, if you probably doesn't work. We would have to switch.
I'm going to open another one at the end. So
yeah, okay. So Vegard will show something at the end. But anyway, it just gives you an idea how easy it is to access the information. And then there you will find all the data for that one specific area, for example, pre-filling or data sharing for all the 80 administrations. Now below that, you will find then a few case studies. We are now working with countries on improving this, making more detailed case studies. We've already contacted a few countries. We try to streamline the look and feel of those case studies so that they're easy, accessible, and understandable what's behind. And then at the end of each web page, you will find further information. We try to upload as many reports that you have, so it becomes also a repository where you can find further information on those different building blocks. Let me stop here maybe and just have some final words on the next steps. And I've mentioned that already. I think it's just for us, it's 2 next steps. One is we aim to add additional tax administrations. So we will work with our partner organizations, again, that you can see here, to get more survey responses. Again, I can just underline, if you have not yet participated, it would be greatly appreciated if you could complete the survey and send it to us. And then secondly, we will work on those detailed case studies that you as tax administrations get a better understanding of what interesting things are out there. How have other administrations used technology tools and digital solutions to advance their own administration. And finally, we will also, of course, try to keep up to date the data that we collect. So we plan in the future to have another survey round and ask countries to just review their information and provide updates to us. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ollie. Much appreciated. We are moving on to the next topic related to digitalization. And this is a reminder about the report that we published in collaboration with ATAF and with input from over 30 tax administrations and organizations back in December 21. The purpose of this report is to inspire and motivate administrations to start on the digitalization journey and offer guidance for this process and suggest areas of digitalization along with practical experience from tax administrations. I'm not spending much time on this now. You can study it later, because this has also been the topic of workshops, webinars throughout 22 in GRD. But I did want to remind you that the report has 3 parts for slightly different audiences. The first part is actually meant for commissioners, finance ministries, and others that need to build the case for digitalization, and you can give motivation and inspiration in this regard. Part 2 is about the journey, where we make some recommendations and suggestions for the common stages and how to go about it. And the third part is a lot of examples and further supporting guidance for those who are involved in such projects. What's new? Well, the exciting news for me, since I was involved in developing the report, is that we will soon see it in French and Spanish. That's going to be very useful, I think. Now, the session right before this one was all about tax inspectors without borders, and Dr. Esther Koisen was involved there as well. I look forward to hearing from you again, Esther, in a few minutes. But at the moment, as you may know then from that session, if you were there, the FTA and the TIWB secretariats are currently piloting a proposed program, Tax Inspectors Without Borders, for digitalization of tax administrations. The purpose of this program is to provide confidential management level advice on strategic topics related to digitalization. And it's similar to traditional TIWB programs in that the assistance is peer-to-peer. It's a niche program, not competing with the offers of other organizations. And we aim to utilize the local knowledge of UNDP offices wherever possible. However, there are some differences compared with traditional programs. This one focuses primarily on management level dialogue rather than having staff work shoulder by shoulder. And the assistance will be given as upstream and strategic and confidential advice rather than training. And in sometimes cases, the assistance will actually be provided by management and staff from FTA members rather than people from the TIWB roster. Why do we do this program? Well, we believe that this kind of peer-to-peer model to support digitalization has potential to add considerable value while also being practical in terms of resource commitments. And not the least, we're not duplicating the work of other organizations. So what's new with TIWB DTA? Well, we have 4 pilots underway that are testing the concepts. One of those is the Chile Malaysia workshop pilot, sorry. And in addition, we are considering 3 different variations of projects under this program in the future. And subsequent variations on this would depend on previous project outcomes or similar outcome from other work. In the first variation here, administrations would be assisted with performing a self-assessment based on the digital transformation maturity model recently mentioned as a foundation for further digitalization work. And this could also be preparation for future assistance projects. The second variation then would focus on validating or supporting the development of an administration's digitalization strategy, using the insight gained from that maturity assessment. The third variation would be open-ended with regarding to scope and allow administrations to request assistance in one particular digitalization area where high-level strategic advice would be helpful. Potential areas could be strategic decisions related to particular technology solutions, such as electronic invoicing or digital identity. It could be strategic use of analytics. It could be change management challenges, project management challenges, moving from traditional to agile development methodology, or mastering the transition from strategy to implementation. All three variations are actually in use in the 4 pilots that we are running at the moment. So we do expect to get some really good, gain some really good experience from the pilots that we can use, assuming that the program will be approved formally by the TLWB board at some point. And now I'm going to stop my presentation again and give the floor and offer the screen sharing to Bernardita Moraga from SIA Chile. Bernardita will share from their experience as a partner in a pilot. Please go ahead and I'll stop sharing.
Estoy compartiendo pantalla, entiendo.
Can you see my screen? Hi there, good afternoon, everybody. My idea here is sharing my pilot program with all of you. We are going to explain the experience that we have together with Malaysia in the electronic invoicing system. Esther is with us today, and I would like to tell you that the person in charge of this program is Paula Mena, and she's on holidays right now, so that's why I will be making the presentation. Now it's holiday season in Chile. It's like August for the North Hemisphere, so we are not many people in the office right now. Nevertheless, we are present here today, and we want to show you a brief summary of the electronic invoicing system in Chile. And we are going to make some comments about the pilot program we have implemented. Let's explain, first of all, what's been our history. We started the invoicing programs in 2003. We gave the first steps in relationship to this issue. In 2005, we already had a free electronic invoicing system, and it was available on the internet. On 2013, we already had 80,000 people invoicing online. 2014 was a very important year for all of us because that's when the electronic invoicing law was passed. And in this law, we saw the different levels of implementation. And in 2018, we saw that 100% of the companies needed to have a digital invoicing system. So you can see that we have been working on this topic for at least 20 years. I want to give you some numbers. Maybe the numbers are not very clear. This is the yearly inclusion of companies in the free service of the SII. This has been the evolution. We reached a peak of 261,000 people, and you can also see the software companies working with digital invoicing system. You can see also that in 2016, we got 22,000 new participants. At the bottom, you can check the link and you can see all the statistics available. So numbers related to electronic invoicing. This is the annual number of invoices. In 2022, we reached 685 million of invoices issued. You can see the different companies allowed. the invoicing system is almost 91% of the total, and we have 9% of people that have the market software. And we can see that the micro companies are almost 80% of the users. Small companies represent 17%. The medium companies amount 3%, and big companies amount for 1% of the total. Now I want to give you a graphic explanation of how the service works. As I was saying before, we have the taxpayer, and we have the option for the taxpayer to use the free taxing system, which doesn't require any certification. We are talking about companies with a limited number of invoices, and it allows the company to issue certain digital documents. When the documents are encrypted, we send that information to the receiver. It's done through XML documents or through a different kind of document, but it's also sent to the central service, which validates the whole process. And we can also see the market possibility. It requires a certification, it has to be paid, and it's normally for companies with a high level of invoices. It can be integrated with other ERP services, and it has different document possibilities. Once it's included, there is a certification process. So there is a process with different stages. There is a simulation. There is also an exchange of information. We send certain tests to the service, and after that, there is a compliance declaration. Once everything is ready, we can use this stage, and that's when we send the document, and the flow is the same one as the free service available. As I was saying before, in the service, we evaluate, we verify that the document complies with all the rules, and we tell the issuer whether the document is accepted or not. And if it's rejected, we inform the reason why it was rejected. That's the validation process we have. And these are the different tax documents that are available online. The most important thing is that there are benefits both for the taxpayers as well as for the tax administration. Let's talk about the taxpayer. There is a reduction because they don't need to print the documents, they don't need to store different tax documents. And we also see that they don't need to pay stamp taxes. So there is a reduction in the amount taxpayers, in the amount of time taxpayers need to use for this possibility. Also, no physical documents are lost because everything is transferred online, and they don't need to keep the documents for 6 years. For tax purposes, it was necessary to keep the physical invoices for 6 years. The taxpayers, as I said before, can use this service, but at the same time, they can also use the private software possibilities. So let's talk about the Chilean service now. Obviously, we can fight against fake invoices. Everything is centralized. The reception of documents is central. At the same time, we can verify all the documents. And there is something also very important. We can check all the VDA transactions. For example, we can fight against problems. We can verify the providers, and we can check all the amounts of purchases. Nevertheless, there is also something very important, which is the perception of our service. On the other hand, with this information that we have available, thanks to the digital invoicing system, we can have a registry of purchases and sales of each taxpayer. So there is no need to have a book, and there is no need to have sworn declarations. So it's better for the taxpayer, and the first category taxpayers also get a better experience because they can easily declare the taxes monthly because they have available all the information that we get from the digital invoicing system. And this way, we can make a proposal of VAT declaration for the taxpayer, and with all the information we get, we make them a proposal and they can simplify this certification. We could also implement the electronic factoring, which is a very interesting tool for us in this service. And now let's talk about the pilot program between Malaysia and Chile. So we collaborated for some years through the SIAT because I am a corresponding member. We are going to talk about the different experiences that we have exchanged with other countries. For example, last year we got the first visit of Malaysia's team, and this month of March we are going to get the visit of CREDAF, which is a group of French-speaking tax authorities from Africa, and they will be visiting us during the second 15 days of March because we want to collaborate with them in the review and implementation of the digital invoicing systems of those countries. For us, it was very important to collaborate with Malaysia in order to be able to have a good pilot program and define at the same time what we want as a goal and as a challenge. We thought that both the host tax administration and the partner tax administration need to exchange information constantly, and that has happened with us. We've had many meetings with the colleagues. I already said that they visited us in Chile. And thanks to all this information, we could decide the scope. The scope for this implementation is that the service is going to give strategic high-level recommendations and advisory programs for Malaysia, together with the invoicing process. This support is going to be given by internal professionals of the national organization, and because they have a very long experience in the sector. So what's the goal? The goal for us is going deeper in the most important relevant topics, and the topics might be the following: transfer of knowledge in relationship with the invoicing system implemented, its different characteristics, plus all the technical considerations, advantages, disadvantages, and implementation strategies, together with the management of the change we want to develop. This service needs to inform in relationship to the digital infrastructure to have a free digital invoicing system, including all the main functionalities, monitoring, support, also contingency plans, and the architecture used, together with the availability of information in the cloud. That's everything regarding the technology part. Nevertheless, at the same time, it's necessary to explain our experience with the minimum framework of requirements for all the taxpayers. I said that we started in 2003, And in 2013, 10 years later, it was when we started implementing the digital invoicing law, and the final implementation was in 2018. There is also a very interesting point, and is that we reached an agreement in relationship with the participation of the specialists. It's important to have the necessary specialists both for the decision making and during the implementation, because they need to have the adequate knowledge to be able to reach success. We have progressed a lot, and we think that this bullet point is very important. As I said before, we have been dealing with this topic for the last 20 years. So it's necessary to be operational and give the information with the technology we have available at the time. When we started, this technology was very different. So we need to get used to the available technologies and the reality of the country. We cannot make the strategic recommendations from 20 years ago. We need to focus on the available technologies at the moment. That's our experience. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I'll give the floor to Begard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin. Very nice to hear about your solution. We are running a bit short on time, but I would very much still like to hear from Esther. So we don't need to use the presentation for our conversation, Esther. It's good to actually be talking for a little while. And I wonder if maybe you could share a bit about what might be for you the benefits of participation in the TIWB DTA pilot, and also if there are any particular challenges that administrations might prepare for if they should be involved in a similar pilot or program when they, assuming that the job's formalized.
Thank you, Vegard, and thank you for this opportunity actually given to us to be involved in this pilot. E-invoicing is something very important to us, as we were in the midst at the time considering whether to implement or not. And although we have actually also engaged with several other tax administrations, including Mexico, Brazil, Turkey, France, Italy, Korea, but this pilot with Chile has given us a very high-level strategic facilitation in our decision-making in terms of whether to proceed with the plan to implement the e-invoicing. And I think the benefit of having a TIWB partner in this strategic decision is we were able to really see how this e-invoicing works. As you can see from Benedita's presentation, they have a very long history of implementation, and we can see how they have generously shared with us their experience, what works and what did not work in the beginning, and we can see by 2018 100% of implementation. So there's a lot of benefit in having this engagement with them. We have really benefited from the visit. Actually, it's actually very important to have face-to-face engagement, at least for several days, because although we have several meetings, but sometimes, especially when we need translation, for instance, interpretation both ways. So it does help if we meet and talk to each other. And you can see from the presentation from Benedita how they have implemented it successfully, and we can see ourselves able to do likewise, taking the leveraging from their experience. So we are now actually in the midst of also discussion in terms of IT platform, the models which are available for us to take, and from their experience we are also learning from them how their legal framework was also designed to ensure that compliance to the requirement is made easier for taxpayers. So I think Vegat, mindful of the time, I would say that this pilot proof that the IWB can be a platform for this kind of project. And I think our pilot with Chile is a good example of a good outcome of this pilot. And thank you, Chile, for the strong support. We have been really working very well together, and we hope that in our effort to ensure that our IT platform is ready, you'll be able to come to Malaysia to support us further. Thank you, Vegat. And of course, thank you, Vegat, for facilitating as well.
Thank you very much, Esther. And yes, indeed, we are a bit pressed for time. I had a whole range of other topics that I also wanted to mention to you participants today, but we're going to go quickly through them. This is a summary of these initiatives that we've been talking about the last few minutes, so you can see how they come together. But then there's something else that I also wanted to mention. We have an analytics maturity model that we also recommend administrations to use, and we see that this is relevant both for developing and developed countries. So that might be something you want to look into if relevant. And then we asked throughout 22, and you responded. Excuse me. In GRP webinars in 22, we asked participants which of these 10 topics that you'd like us to focus on for training and reports. And the summarized results show that there are 2 topics that seem to be standing out, and that's creating a tax administration digitalization strategy and using analytics in tax administration. So what do we do about that? Well, for digital strategy, we are currently collecting examples of digital strategies from FTI member administrations. We don't know yet quite what this will lead to, but we have seen some great examples already, and maybe some of them can end up as use cases on ET. We're also looking at how a self-assessment based on the DTMM, the maturity model, could be part of a process of developing a digital strategy. And again, this is in the early stages, but it seems to work well. And finally, we wanted to remind you that there's a lot of very useful information in ITI on what administrations have done. This is where I was planning to have a look at one of the Excel sheets from ITI, but in the interest of time, we're going to skip that. As regards analytics, we also have some great news, I think. The analytics maturity model will very soon be available in French and Spanish, in addition to the original English version. And in addition, we are also currently working on a workshop concept, similar to the one that we offer for the model on digital transformation. And this could be used for live training on how to use the analytics model for self-assessment. And then I just want to remind you before we wrap up about the Global Relations Program, live and self-paced training. You will get access to the presentation after the seminars are pretty sure, so you can use the links here. And the next webinar, where we will most likely focus on the two topics of digital strategy and analytics, will probably be the topic of the 15 March webinar, which is which is on the website for GRD. And with that, we wrap up and remind you that the time is ripe for digitalization and digital transformation of tax administration. And your administration is invited not only to use the tools from the FTA, but also to enhance them by providing your input to them. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much to our external speakers. And thank you for staying on for so long into the afternoon and evening or night, might be where you are. And have a good day.